Okay. So hope everyone can see my screen. Okay. Okay, so last session, we have seen how to we have written some log statements in the entity object implementation class. Basically, as I said, entity object is being called whenever we try to insert the data into the database table. Before interacting with the database table, typically entity object is the one which holds the main methods, which actually will be useful to be called. Example, if you wanted to, as I was talking yesterday, last week, if you wanted to create a primary key column based on some sequence ID, you can rely on the create. And similarly, before deleting some data from the database, this remove method will be called. And if you wanted to do something before that, then you can create your logic here. And similarly, we have another method called doDML, typically which will be called for inserts, delete, updates. For any DML operations, we can use the doDML method, and this method will be, we can apply any of our custom logic in this doDML method as well. If anything you wanted to do before doing any insert, update, or delete kind of statements. So we have seen this by running the statement, running this project. So we ran it, and we did some DML operations, and we have seen how the log statements got started printing in the console. We have seen that. So I'm running it again for you, and I'll quickly show you and see that. So when I ran, okay, so which one I'm running it? It's not our method. So let me go to the project that we created. So this is the project we created, and we have written the DML operations in create, remove, and doDML. So let me run this. Okay, so we ran it. So we have written this this logics on country EO IMPL. So country EO IMPL. So country EO IMPL, country EO IMPL, and we need to know, before doing operations on this country EO IMPL, we should know what is the VO based on this country EO IMPL. Out of these two, which one is that? So I know, because country EO IMPL, this country EO is a country EO, and country EO view is the one based on this country EO. So I know this is the instance. So what I will do, I will just click this one to execute this view object. So we got the data. So what I'm planning to do here, I can if I create the record or remove the record or doDML. So we have the print statements in all these things. So what I will do, I will click on the plus button here. So when I click on the plus button, what I am going to do, I am going to create a record, right? So when I click on plus, what is going to happen, basically, it is allocating a memory in the cache to create a record. Okay, so I'm clicking it. So typically what is happening, it is allocating a memory to create a record. So it's not memory in the database, it's actually memory in the cache, basically. That is the reason it is saying that in create method of country EOIMPL, we have written this one here. In create method of country EOIMPL, which is actually part of the create method, right? This create method is part of the country EOIMPL.java. So this is the method. So what happened here, whenever I click the plus button, whenever memory got allocated in the cache memory, this method is being called, right? So now what I will do, whenever I keep some value to the country ID, a country name, something like that. So if I keep some names, right? So maybe some names, and I entered some data in the cache memory. I haven't committed this data into the database basically. So to commit the data into the database, I need to click on this commit button. When I click on the commit button, typically that is the time the real data manipulation like DML statement is getting executed. Whenever DML statement get executed, what will happen? This DML method will get called. Okay, it's just that. What I am doing, I am going here and clicking on this save to database. Then what happens is do DML method is called. That is the reason it say the do DML method of country evo.ioimpl. So it came up, sorry, right? So that's why we tested it last week. So now we can enhance little more on this example. We can insert the record here, we can remove the record here, we can update the existing record here, right? So we have three kind of DML operations. We can insert it, delete it, and update it. So how do you know one is inserting, one is deleting, one is updating, right? So for that, we have few variables given by this this framework. Framework means this is our country evo.impl. This country evo.impl extending the entity impl. It means it is a parent class, it is a child class. It means child class can inherit all the properties of the parent class. If you click on the parent class, control click. Sorry. So what is happening? This parent class has all these variables and all the methods available, which can be easily used in our country evo.impl.java class, right? So in this class, we have some variables called DML insert, DML update, DML delete. What does it mean? This variable say if we have variable is DML insert, it means equal to 1. It's a static variable. What happens, ADF framework, Fusion applications, whenever DML operation happens, internally what happens, what framework will do, automatically set the variable DML insert as equal to 1. I mean, automatically ensures that insert operation is happening. So in this method, we have something called operation, which is passing to do DML method. This operation will say what is exactly happening in this do DML, right? Example, let us say I will print this operation here. So I will just say plus operation. I just printed it, okay? So let me save it. And let me close this and let me rerun the application module here. So now let's perform some operations on our data set and we will see what is the operation is coming up here. Okay, so what I will do, I will just go and update some row. Sorry. So it is a Vivo based on the Evo. So what I will do, I will go here and update the country ID as 11. Okay, and I will go and update it. So if you see here, it went to the do DML method and it called the system.out.println in do DML method of country evo.impl. In do DML method of country evo.impl, operation called as to. Why operation called as to? What we have done, we have updated the existing record, right? If you go back to your parent class and if you go and see this number 2, it is nothing but DML update, right? So how this 2 came up here, ADF framework will take care of that part. Most of the programming logic is already written by the ADF framework. What all we need to do, we need to reuse that and enhance based on our needs. That's what exactly happening here. So that is the way. So example, in your logic, if you wanted to, if update is happening, do something. If delete is happening, do something. Then typically what you can do, you have many ways to do. You can say that if operation is equal to 1, it is insert. If it is 2, it is delete. That is one way. Other way is we have the variables given for each and everything. We have said DML insert. Okay, then do something. you can you can print something. Okay, in the abdominal method, data is getting inserted, something like that. So if it's if operation equal to DML update, we can write on the method like that. So there are many ways we can enhance our logic here. Okay, so basically entity object, whatever operations we do, as we were saying last week, these operations we have to do only if it is really necessary before committing the database or updating the database. Typically it's kind of a triggers. If we, when do we write trigger? Before we wanted to do some operations on our database, before creating, before updating, before deleting, we wanted to do some kind of operation. Those delete kind of, those triggers kind of functionalities has to be implemented in entity object. But most of the business logic always goes into the application module. So if I go to the test application module implementation.java, because application module is the one which actually holds the view object instances and also holds the data controller. So application module is the one which is very important, which is where most of our application logics will be handled. And here is a place most of times we write our own custom code, and those custom codes will be used in the user interface. When we create a screens, in those screens, if you wanted to call some methods or if you wanted to call some functionalities, those methods, those functionalities, those procedures has to be written in this application module. Okay, because application, if you see the application module, I'm into the application module. If you see the application module, most of the if you see it has the get country vivo1. What is happening? It is actually getting the view object instance actually. So if you see, we have two view objects, country evo view and country vivo. And country vivo is nothing but it's just a custom it's a view based on the SQL query. Right, it's a view based on the SQL query. It's not just a SQL query. It is not based on any entity object, right? It doesn't have any entity object. It's just based on the query. And we haven't generated any Java classes for this. No Java classes are generated for this static static view. And whereas this country evo view, which is actually based on the entity object country evo, right? And we have also generated the Java classes for this view object. So we have three Java classes for view object: view definition implementation, view implementation, and evo view row implementation. So we have these three classes already defined for the country evo view, right? So we define that. So at this, these two view objects are defined, and these two view objects are already registered in the, if you go to the data model of application module, these two view objects are already registered in the application module. As these two are already registered in the application module, and we have generated the Java classes for the application module, these two view object instances are being available in the application module class. We have the country vivo1 and country evo view1. These names are based on the view instances that we have defined here, right? So we have the hold of these two view objects. When we have the hold of these two view objects, it means we could able to get the data from this view object and play and can do many more things with this view object. Okay, before playing with the data available in the view object, let me show you how the methods created in this application module is available in the user interface. Okay, so what I will do, I will create a simple method in this application module, and I will show you how it can be visible in the user interface. Okay, so I'm not going through the user interface yet till we are playing the user interface with this tester only. And today is the last class. We are talking about the classes, and from tomorrow we'll talk about the real user interface of creating a web pages basically. And tomorrow when I create web pages, whatever methods I am talking about here today, I'm going to use those methods to show up on the user interface. Okay, let me close this. This is application module. As I said, most of our main logic goes to the application module. What I will just create a simple method in this application module, and I will see how I can expose it on the user interface, or how I can execute that method from the tester. Okay, let me create a simple method. Let me create a simple public void hello world, something like that, as in my first custom method I'm trying to write. So I won't give any anything here, and I will just say SOP, just control enter, system.out.println, and I will say hello world. Hello world. I will just say the hello world, and I'm just printing a method like this. So it's just a custom method here, right? So if it is a custom method, and how this custom method will be exposed. When I say exposed, any method that you're writing in your application module, why we are writing that? We write those methods only to show up in the, only to use it in the front end. To use it in the front end, that has to be exposed to the outside world. Okay, so that's what I'm going to show now. So once we create any method in the application module, typically what we need to do, this application module method has to be exposed to the outside world. To expose to the outside world, we have to perform one step basically. Okay, so see here in the application module, we have the XML file and two Java classes, definition implementation Java and implementation.java class, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to expose this method, right? To expose the method, typically what to do, go to this application module definition and go to the Java, and we have something called client interface. This client interface contains the methods from application module class that are available for clients using this object. So just click on the pencil button, and you have this hello world void method. Just go it. Before clicking on it, just observe that we have only two Java classes here. And just click on it, and I'm saying okay. When I say okay, it means this method is being exposed to the clients. To the clients means nothing but a user interface. Okay, so this is exposed. Whenever we created this, whenever we did this operation, if you see that there's one more Java class got created. We have this implementation Java class already. We have the definition implementation class already, and this test module Java class got created. And where this got created, right? So it's not a class. If I click on it, it is nothing but an interface. So what is this interface? This interface actually having the hello world method, whatever method we created. So when this interface is created, and this our test module implementation.java, it also get updated, and it actually previously it was like this, and now it is implementing the test application module. So we have got the test application module.java class created, and it's not a class, it's an interface, and this interface is extended by our test module implementation.java, the main class one, and this class is implemented this hello world class here. So what is interface? So interface is actually a terminology in Java. Basically what happens is whenever you create any interface, that interface actually whatever methods you define in the interface. This is a method you define in the interface, right? So any class which implements this test module, any class which implements this test module should override this method, means they have to implement this method. Okay, so as this is interface, this interface is being implemented by this test module implementation class, and as it is implementing this one, whatever methods are available in the test app module, this is the method available in the test app module, this method has to be implemented here. That is what happened here. It implemented the hello world. So that is the functionality created. But if you see what typically we have done, we went to our test module implementation.java class, and we just wrote this hello world method. That's what we did. And we did that, and we went to this our definition, and we exposed the client interface. Then internally ADF framework, what it did, internally it created this linkage. It created an interface here which extends application module, and we got interface here, and this interface automatically got implemented by this test module implementation class, and this one came up here. So this is the why it got created, and why this interface got created. Why? What is the purpose of it? Typically what happens is, whatever methods you implement, whatever custom methods you implement in test application module, so anything in the implementation app model implementation class, so any custom methods are available, those custom methods will be created in this interface. Here it won't have any definition of the method, it will just have the name and the return type. Example, if I write another method here, so this time what I will do, this time I will just create another method which actually returns a string. Okay, so what I will do, I will create another method, hello app some xxx, something I'll say, something I'll say, and I will say I'll pass some variable here, string name, and here what I will do, I will just write a system.out, sorry, what I will do, I will hello plus name, that's what I will do, right? So I am printing the name here, and I am also returning the, I will also return the name here. I will just return hello plus the name. Okay, so this is another method I have created. Example I'm saying, so it's another method I created, which is actually just taking the input as a string and returning the another string, just like that. Okay, so if you see that, and again we may create this method, and what this method should be, this method should be exposed to the outside world. To do that, again I'm going here and I'm going to client interface, and again I will see that hello xx string is there. So I'm going it, I have two methods now. When I say click on OK, when I click on save, if I again go back to my, it has this two, if I go back to test application module.java, so let me close it and open again, right? So if I open it again, so what is happening here, it created two methods here, void hello world and string hello xx with string name. So what it did, it just had a definition of those two methods, and these two methods are already implemented here. So what typically happens is, whenever we expose anything to the outside world, we will just give this interface, we will give this, say that hey, these are the methods available, just go and use it. So once we give this interface to the outside world, then what they typically do, they typically use this interface, and they will know what method has to be called, they will know what parameters has to be called, and also know what this method will return. This method will return string, or it won't return anything. It will identify what it will return. So based on that, we will know how to call that method from outside world. That's all we need, right? We don't need to know what is happening inside. All we need is how we need to call it, right? Because we are already simplifying a job by writing our custom logic here, right? Okay, now how do we test it? We got it created, we exposed to the outside world. Okay, so if you wanted to test it, just go ahead, go to this one and go to the tester and run it. It's running. So once it's open up, okay, it opens up. So we have the view objects here, but where are our methods? To get the methods, just double click on this test module. You can see two methods here, hello world and hello xxx. So hello world is one method. So if you want to execute this method, click on execute, it will give the result here. If you have any result, if it has a return type, it will give the result here. If it doesn't have a return type, it will just say the message. So I'm getting hello world, just up to the console here, execute. So it is success, and it got the hello world print here. So this method got called and it got successful. Return value is null because it doesn't return anything here, right? Similarly, if you want to execute hello xxx, it is actually taking a property value here. So I'm just going to say, I will say, yeah. So I'm giving a value as rainbow and I'm going to execute it here. So it is saying that result is success and return value is hello rainbow. That is the return value. And we also printed the name here, hello rainbow. So those two methods got exposed to the user interface. Now, when these methods are available means we can use these methods anywhere in our user interface. This is the tester here. For now, it's a Swing application. If you go the real web pages or mobile pages or any other framework, we can use these methods easily. Okay, right. Now, in reality, how does it work? In reality, do we do like this or do we do more? Okay, maybe we do more. Example, let us say we have a requirement that we wanted to in a page, when we go to application page, and whenever we wanted to whenever we wanted example, let us say is our security console. Yeah, it is there. So if you go to security console, let us say if you wanted to search for a user. Okay, so if you go and search for the user example, and once we search for the user, maybe once all the users came up, maybe at the bottom you want to display something like that, total users returned is whatever the count is there. Or you want to display something here, total users returned is 45. That is what you want to display here. Example I'm saying. If you want to display a screen, maybe in the screen you will have a mechanism. Maybe we learn more how to do that. We will return a mechanism how to display the username, status, whatever information, and also you want to display total count is 45 number of users, right? So how do you get the total number of users? That is the example I'm saying, right? So maybe you want to write a method. Maybe you want to write a method like you want to return some maybe you want to return like count rows. Okay, you want to return a method. You want to write a method count rows. Basically, what this count rows will return? Count rows will return number. Basically, number can be, we can have a integer, but for now I'm going to use long here, long, and it is a public method. Okay, so I'm going to write a method here, count rows. So what I need to do here, I just need to, example, if it is if I am executing country EO view object, what I wanted to know what are the number of rows available in this country EO view. Whatever number of rows available in this country EO view. That's my requirement. Or how many rows are available in this country view 1 example. That's what your requirement. So how do you get that? For that, we have to work with this view objects. Okay, so in our case I wanted to find number of rows in this view object. So what this method is doing here, this method is actually returning a country EO view implementation class. Basically, typically what it is doing, it is actually giving us the view object. Okay, so what I will do, I will use this method first. Let me get hold of this view object first. Okay, so I want to get this view object first. Now what I need to do, I need to catch this view object. Okay, so for that, what I can do, I know I have the country EO view implementation. This is the class, so I will get this, and I will say as country or CVO, something like that. Okay, right. So I got this method. So typically there is some error. Okay, I will fix that. So we got the view object. Once we got the view object, what we need to do, basically, once we got the view object, we have predefined methods. CVO dot. We have some methods. There are many methods which we can use. One of the method we have is get estimated row count. This get estimated row count, what it will do, this method estimates the number of rows in the row count by calling some query hit count. It's just say that it's nothing but a select count star from a table. This business logic typically gives us the estimated row that are but maybe inserted or removed basically. So basically what is happening here, it is actually giving the number of rows, estimated row count available in the memory. Why it is saying estimated? Uh, 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 because when we work with the memory will go interact with the, as I said, there are two things. We have the entity object and view object database. So entity object and view object mostly work with the memory, and database is actually real database. So before committing to the database, we always work with the entity object and view object. That is nothing but a cache memory, right? So maybe in the we may, in our whole transaction process, we may do many inserts, many deletes, many updates. So we don't know how many really deleted or how many really inserted. That is the reason it is saying that estimated row count. So it will get the estimated row count from the memory, actually memory of the view object. It will get that. Okay, so we got the row count. So now again, what is this row count is returning? So let us see, this row count is returning along, right? So let me go back to let me get some variable long total rows is equal to, yeah, so I am getting the variable here. Okay, total rows is equal to something like that. Okay, so I got it. So I got the row count. So now what I will do, I will return the total rows. Okay, and this should be displayed in my screen now, right? So let us see that. Let's test it out. So now we created the new method. What we need to do, we need to expose this method to the outside world. Okay, right? So again, to expose the method, I need to go here and I need to click here. I need to expose it. So let's save it and again run it. Okay, so I'm running it. Okay, so let's see that. So we have the count rows. So now I'm trying to execute it. Let us see what happens. So it got success and we got total count as 8. So when we got the count as 8, that means what we can do, we can, when we write our user interface, typically we can create a text box component here. Okay, maybe which is read only text, and we can keep a label here. We will say that the number of user counts is this number, some 8. We got this one, and all we need to do is we need to expose this method in the user interface, and we need to get the value displayed here. As simple as such, which we are going to see tomorrow and the day after classes. Okay, it is one way, and there are many other ways. What all we need to do, basically, we need to know. Let's play around with the real scenarios. Example, I have another scenario where actually, so what is happening when we're going to view object? Typically, what is happening? We are clicking on the plus button. Does user interface has the plus button always, or maybe plus is what? You are going to create a method here, create a row here. When you are trying to create a row, basically. When you're trying to create a row, we are clicking the plus button here. In reality, is that what it happens? No. In reality, we have to create a row, we have to insert a row, we have to do the row. Maybe in our programming logic, maybe we have to do that. Okay, this plus may not be available at that point of time. Maybe we are going through the program at that point of time. At some point of time, we may need to do an operation. Okay, so maybe another example is, maybe if you are trying to create a user account. When you create a user account, typically what is happening here, when you create a user account, you're creating the user account for the username like this. And typically when you click on the save and close, what is happening, it's not only inserting the record in the users table, it may also be inserting record into a different table. Maybe person and user roles table are different tables, right? So maybe this has only reference to one entity object, but when this entity object is getting updated, we have to refer to multiple tables or multiple entity objects or view objects and update the data there, right? So it means creating a row should happen programmatically, and not for every entity object we cannot keep clicking the plus button like that. It's just for example, just a tester. So what I wanted to intend to say is, how do we create the row programmatically? Okay, so that's next example I am planning to show. So how do we create a row, right? To create a row, we have a couple of things we should know. One thing we understood from this method is we know how to get the control of the view object. Once we get the view object, then once we get the view object, every view object will have number of methods, and based on our experience, based on our knowledge, we can keep calling the methods and get our work done. Okay, now let us example. Let me show you one more thing in this one. Here we have two view objects in our application module, right? In our application module, we have the two view objects, country EO view 1 and country view 1. Country EO view 1 is nothing but this view object, and country view 1 is nothing but this view object. Oh, no. This view object, right? This is one view object, and this is another view object. And this view object doesn't have any Java classes defined yet. Okay, if I go to the application module where we have these two view objects, control of two view objects. One is get country view 1 and get country EO view 1. If this is get country EO view 1, basically based on this EO view object, it is actually returning the country EO view IMPL class. Whereas this country view 1, this get country EO 1 is not returning the country view IMPL class, instead returning the view object IMPL class. Why it is returning the view object IMPL here, and why it is returning the country EO view IMPL here? The reason is we have the Java classes defined for this EO view object. We have the Java classes defined for the view object. That is a return. It is returning the classes. If you go to this classes, if you go to this country view IMPL class, what it is doing, it doesn't have any method. It is just extending the view object IMPL method. As it is extending the view object IMPL method, you are able to, when you are holding this, when you are getting this object, in this object, you are able to call any method available. The reason is this class is actually inheriting the view object IMPL. If you go to view object IMPL, if you control click on that, this view object IMPL has many number of methods available here. One of the method is get estimated row count. See that this method is available here. As this method is available here, that is the reason you could able to use it successfully here. CVO dot get estimated row count. CVO, even though it is get country EO view IMPL class, you could able to use it successfully. That's the reason it is. So it is nothing but extending the view object IMPL class. Okay, now if you see this get country view 1, this get country view 1 doesn't have any Java classes defined yet. That is the reason it is directly returning the view object IMPL object. It is simply returning that view object IMPL because it is not having any Java classes defined yet. If you define a Java classes for this one, and it again returns the view object IMPL object. Okay, so that's why it is. So even in this case also, you can successfully use the view object IMPL method as well to execute anything. Okay, right. So for that, create row. I wanted to create a row programmatically. How do you want to do that? To create a row programmatically, we have few things to do. Okay, first of all, if you see in our, whenever we are executing anything, whenever we are trying to create a row in our ADF tester, the first thing we are doing is we're clicking on the plus icon, right? When you click on the plus icon, it is typically opening up a new record, right? Once it is opening up a new record, it's nothing but it's actually opening up a memory in our cache memory. Basically, it's opening up a placeholder in our cache memory, a pointer to our cache memory. Once we have the pointer to our cache memory, right? So neglect plus, it is actually opening up a pointer in our cache memory. When we have the pointer to our cache memory, then typically what we have to do, we have to set values to each of these three properties. And I set values to each of these properties, then typically once setting the values in each of these three properties, we have to insert that row into our cache memory. Once we insert the row in our cache memory, then we have to commit the data into the database, basically. So we have to perform couple of steps to insert a row. Basically, we have to create a pointer in cache memory. That's the first thing we have to do. Once you create a pointer in the cache memory, then typically we have to set the values for each column. We have to set the values for each column. Once we set the values for each column, typically you have to, once you set the values for each column, then you have to insert that row into cache memory. Once we insert the row into cache memory, next step is to have to commit the row into database. We have to do all these 4 operations. To do all the 4 operations, basically, to do all those things in the cache memory, typically we have to we have predefined methods which can do all this stuff. Okay, so the first step is to create the pointer in the cache memory. To create a pointer in the cache memory, we have to get hold of the view object on which database table you are trying to insert the data, right? So let me go and create a method, public create. So let me public void create row. Okay, so I will just create this one. First thing we need to do, we need to get control of the view object, right? So how do we get control of the view object? We have the method, this get control, get country view one. You know, this is the method which will get the view object. So, and what is method returning? Country view IMPL, right? So get country view IMPL. So I will say cvivo. This is the method we received. So once we got that, the first step, what we need to do, we just need to insert the row into the cache memory. So let's go here and cvivo dot, we have some method called create row. So we have some method called create row. So this is creates a new view row. This new row is not placed in the cache until its primary key is initialized. I will say how do we need to do. So we have to create this row first. Once we create the row, what it is returning? It is actually returning a type as row. It's returning a row type. Okay, so I need to catch it in the row object. I'm getting it. So I need to catch it in the row object, and I would say row as new row. Okay, so doing that. So now whenever I'm giving it, I'm going to catch it in the row. Typically, what is happening here? An underline is happening here. The reason is this class is available in the it just imported. So available in the oracle.jbo.row framework class. We have to get it. We have to import it to use it here. So ADF framework automatically hints us what needs to be done. It will say us that it will say that this is not available, and will ask us to import it. So it's automatically got imported here. Now once I got imported, what all you need to do, you have to you can using the row, basically what you can do, can do a couple of things. You can set the values for each columns here, and once you have the values for each column, then we can insert that row into the cache memory using CVO and row. Okay, how do you set the values for each columns? So setting the values for each column means typically what is returning here. What is returning here is whenever I click on the plus button, a row is returning like this. It has a country ID, country name, and region ID. Returns like this. Okay, so now what is happening? How we got these three things? Because this view object is contain nothing but a set of rows, right? And each row has its own properties. Okay, and using this row object, we could able to set the properties for each of this field. This is one way, right? So how we can do? We have to new row dot. We have some property called set attribute. It will say set attribute name and value, right? If you set attribute, it will have string and it will have the what is the attribute name and value for the attribute. So attribute name nothing but our view object, the country EVA view has the attributes of country ID, country name, and region ID. This is the name actually. So country ID is the attribute name. So get the country ID attribute name. Go to our application module and give the value here country ID, and what value you want to give here? You wanted to give the value as some country ID value, right? So what I will do, I'll go here and I'll give some value to the country ID. So I'll give some value as 25. Okay, it means you are setting the value for the country ID here. That's the meaning of it. Programmatically, you're doing that. Similarly, I will set the value for country name and region ID. So what is the country name? So it is a country name. Just get it and click on the country name. Let me get the region ID as well. So region ID, so get it and set it here. So country name, what you wanted to keep? I will keep some China, and region ID, I want to keep some 200, something like that. It means you set the values for all these three. Once you set all the values, all these three set values for each column, what you need to do next, you need to insert that row into the cache memory. How do you do that? Typically, we have another method at the view object level, which actually used to insert row into the cache memory. So we have, CVO dot, we have something called insert row. This row actually insert a row into the row set. This row is inserted at the current position and becomes the current row. Basically, if you go here, choose here, it's a row type, it's taking a row type, and we have the new row defined here. Take it and keep it here. It means the row got inserted. So once the row got inserted in the cache memory, what we need to do, we have to commit the row into the database. How do you commit the row into the database? So I was saying in my previous classes, when I talk about the architecture, we have in the application module has two things. One is the registrations of all the view objects, and also it will have the data controller. What data controller will do, it will make the objects to view on the user interface, and also we have the provision to commit and roll back data into the database from application module, right? So how can we commit the data into the database from application module? So application module has one method called, one object called DB transaction object. So how we can get that is actually DB database transaction object. This database transaction object, typically when we call this method, that object will get, we can get that object, and this object will have a method called commit. So this commits the changes to the database. So as simple as such. So we got the pointer to the cache memory. So we got the pointer to the cache memory. We got created the row here, and we set the values for each columns. We set the values for each columns here, and we inserted the row into cache memory. We inserted in the cache memory, and we committed the row into the database, and we did that. So all these operations are performed, and we are able to insert the data into the database. Okay. So before getting executed that, we'll keep some DB, we'll keep some log statements to make sure how many rows were there before inserted, how many rows were there before, after inserting, like that. Okay. So what I will do, I will just go and enter system.out.println. I will say that rows before creating pointer. Before creating pointer, let us see how many rows were there. So what I will do, we know that we have a method called get estimated row count. So what I will do, I will use cvo dot get estimated row count. It will say that how many rows were there before inserting the row into the, before creating a pointer to the cache memory, right? Once we did that. So once we got the pointer created in the cache memory, so how many rows were there? Let's see that. Rows after creating pointer, we get it. Okay, so after creating pointer and then we setting the values, we inserted the row into the cache memory. Let us see how many rows are there after inserting row into cache memory. So let's get that. Okay, so this is the row count. So typically once we get the record inserted in the cache memory, typically this view object will get hold of that row as well. This row count should get the updated one. Okay, let's get it. Let's save it. And once we save it, then typically what we need to do, we have to export this method in the application module. So let me go to the application module and go to the Java and go to the client interface and choose this one and expose it to the world and save it and then go ahead and run it. So let me close this one and let me run this one. Okay, so I'm running it. Let us see what it is going to return. Okay, so I got it. So let me double click it and it has three create row method. So what I will do, I will, okay, before that, so let's see how many rows were there in our database table. So let's go and see how many rows there in database table, and after committing it, we will see how many there. Okay, so let me go to the database tables. So we have X6 country and we have the data and we have 8 rows here. Okay, so let's go here and execute. Okay, it is success. So it is saying that rows before creating pointer. So here rows before creating pointer is 8 and rows after creating its create method in the country it got called that method because create method will be called when I create a row. So next after creating pointer it is 8 and once we set the attribute when we inserted the row then it will become a 9. It got 9 here, right? So and it got committed here. So let's go to the database here and again try to refresh it and then let us see how many rows were there. So we got 9 rows got created here. Okay, so it means we got programmatically we were able to create the row into the database, right? Using the inbuilt view object methods. In the inbuilt view object methods, we were able to insert the new row and we were able to set the values and we were able to put the row. Okay, same thing. Now I have written the program like this. Let us think a scenario like here. If you see that when we created the row here, we set the attributes. By setting the attributes, we were actually setting the attributes by the. We should know the name of the column. What is the column of the view object? What is the column of the view object? Because we are setting the values for each view object. How we are setting it? Using the new row. What is a new row? New row is actually is a row object which actually coming from the create row method of the our view object. Which view object? Country evo view IMPL. Okay, it came up like this. That is the reason this set attribute has the method should take will take two values. One is a name, another one is a value. Now let us assume that the column name got changed after some point of time. Maybe the country name became C name. Then what we need to do? Typically, we have to come to this program and we need to modify this attribute name, right? So there is a maintenance behind that. Okay, but there is another way of writing the same thing using a different way. How it is for each row, to handle each row, we are referring a new row here, the row object. To handle the each row, we have another method called country vivo row implementation. We know this method. This class also holds that row data, right? Even this method, this implementation class can also handle a row written from the each view object. We can take care of this one too. This row implementation row class will have the set country ID, get country ID, get country name, and set country name, like that, right? So the same method what I've written here, the same method I can also write in a different way. Okay, how? So what I will do, I will just comment out all these things. I will just take the system dot. I can do all. I take off all these things. So what I will do, this one, whatever this method is getting the row, that row, what I will do, I will take that row into my evo row IMPL class. Okay, instead of the row method, typically I will handle it in my country evo view row IMPL. Sorry, country evo view row IMPL class. So what I will do, I will just take it here, and I will in this class I will just take this row. So I will just say c row is equal to cvivo.create row. So what is happening here? It is actually saying that incompatible types. So this is actually returning the row type, and now you are trying to assigning it to different object. It won't take it. For that, what we can do, we can typecast it. So if you see here the method, the error, if you hover the object here, it is the incompatible types. Okay, oracle.jbo.row cannot be converted into model vivo.country evo view row IMPL. So what I will do, I will force typecast it. I will just take it and I will typecast it like this. It means what I am doing, I am typecasting this one into country evo view row IMPL object. When I did the typecasting, this error gone away now. When I did the typecasting, what I can do now, I have a control to access this view, this row, and using this class we have several methods like set country ID, set country name. It is just taking the value only. Just call set country name and call value at set country ID and call value, just like that, right? What I will do, I will keep using these methods here. I will say zero dot set country ID. See here, set country ID is here. So I will set country ID as some 30, and I will say, so what is happening here? Okay, it can be, sorry, it's not a string, it's a big decimal. Set country ID is 30, and 0 dot set country name. Zero dot set country name is here, which is actually, I can give some country name as Thailand and 0 dot set region ID. Yeah, set region ID. I can set some region ID here, and that region ID I can set as, okay. So what is happening here? Basically, it is not able to convert this 30 into the big decimal. If you see set country ID is taking the big decimal, we have seen that. So typically, what we can do, we can just convert this 30 into the big decimal. So for that, what we just need to do, we just need to say big. These things will come by practice, so nothing to worry. So big decimal of 2 and big decimal of 400, something like that. So if I say that, then automatically they will convert into the big decimal. And now what happening here? Now I'm setting the values here. After setting the values, I just need to insert a row here. So I'm just inserting the row here. cvo.insert row. What is new row? It's not new row, it is 0 now. Got inserted. Now it is committed again, right? So we got it. So now, I mean, if you want to debug it, you can keep the statements. Yeah, you can just keep the statement just for our debugging purpose. We got the statements got created. And now, yeah. Now we can execute this and let us see. So let me close this one. Oh, it looks like it got closed. Let me run again. Oh, it came up. Right, so we got it now. So let me see the methods. We have the create row. We got the create row. Now let's try to execute it. So now what happened? So again, say that initially the number of the rows before creating the pointer is 9, and rows after creating pointer is again 9, and now rows after inserting into the cache memory is 10, right? So if you go to my database again, it was actually 9 now. If you go and refresh it, it will get the 10th one as well. So you got Thailand here, 30, Thailand, 400. So what I was trying to say here is we can use the standard object, and we can also use the custom object too. So when we can use the custom object, we can use the custom object when we created the respective Java classes. If you haven't created the respective Java classes, then you have to go with the row method only, row class only. Okay. So I'm just keeping it aside, and I'm proceeding ahead with the next another frequent thing which I will be using in our user interface. And after that, then I will wrap up these classes and we can begin with the real user interface maybe tomorrow. Okay. So next scenario, what I wanted to do, okay, let us say we have been here. Let us say you are trying to search the user. Now we have an action. Now example here, I want delete. If I click on this delete, then typically what should happen? This row should get deleted. So when I click on this button, this row should get deleted. Okay, maybe once I delete this row, not only this user should get deleted, there are some other other tables as well from where the data has to be deleted, if that is what my requirement is. So I wanted to delete a row. Okay, and what row has to be deleted? That row has to be maybe whatever row I am referring now, that row has to be deleted. Or maybe I have to delete a row which has the country name as something, that is the row I have deleted. So I have to delete a row actually. Okay, to delete a row, basically how do we delete a row, whatever we are referring to. So before deleting a row, there is something I have to talk about, something called current row. Okay, so in the view object means there will be number of rows here. There will be a number of rows, and at maybe at a time we'll be working on any row at any point of time. So how do you, if you wanted to know what is my current row is, what is my current row country name, what is my current row country ID, something like that. To do that, we have another method as well in our view object. So what I was trying, I wanted to get the current row. Once I get the current row, I will try to delete that row basically. Okay, let me show you how we can get the current row, and then based on that, how we can apply some operations on that basically. Okay, so for that, I will go and create another row, another method called current row. Okay, so I will just create it current row, and what I'm going to do to get the current row, basically what I need to do again, I have to get on which view object you are trying to work on. Okay, as usual, I want to work on this country EVO view object, so I will take this one, same thing. I'm getting country EVO view 1, it is my view object. I got the view object. Once I get the view object, so typically what we have, there is a method called CVO got get current row. There's something called current row. Okay, if you get the current row, then it means you could able to get the current rows values basically. Okay, so it's a row. When I get a row, we have to catch it in the, as you have seen, this has to be caught up in a row object, or in our, similar to this country view IMPL, we can capture it in the zero. Okay, I'm getting it. Sorry. Once we get it, how do we get the values? How do we get the values? They're simple. We have in the country viewer row IMPL. If you go to country viewer row IMPL, we have some method called get country name, get country ID, or get region ID. We have the methods already available. So simply what you can do, you can go and say that 0 dot get country name. If you get country name, it means you are getting your country name. So what I will do, I will go here, I will write a statement. So current row country name is, sorry, is something like this, is the country name. So I'm just printing my current row country name basically. Okay, so this is what I was doing. Okay, so there are a few challenges here. I will run it and show you what are the challenges we have, and you will see how we can correct it. Okay, so country name, and I'm saving it. Let me close it, and let me try to execute this. Okay, so when I execute this, it's getting executed. Oh, I think I didn't expose my current row into the application module. So if you won't expose it, then that method may not be available here. See, it's not available here. It's because the current row is not exposed into the application module, exposed to the outside world. Okay, so let me go ahead and open this one up and go to the client interface and click this method and expose it. Click on OK, click on save, and again run it. So if you run again, then you could be able to see it now. Okay, it is opening up. It opened up. So now, see here, there's no view object is executed yet. Okay, so now what we are doing, we are going to application module, and we are just going here and trying to get the current row, and we're trying to execute it. Okay, so we're trying to execute it. When we're trying to execute, what it is saying that it's looking for the current row. But no row has chosen yet because we haven't executed this view object yet. Okay, so if I execute this one, it will say that, okay, it will, if we execute this one, basically what happened, it get the country name as Greece. Let us see what is the first one. Yeah, it is Greece basically. So typically it is having some cache memory, that's what it is looking at. But typically what happens is, without executing this view object, if you run this method, this method won't return any value basically. Okay, typically what is the way ADF framework has given is, before getting the current row, make sure you execute the query. How do you execute the query? Basically, you are clicking on the method and executing the query basically. Okay, but there's programmatically another way to do that as well. What you can do, there's another way called the CVO dot execute query. The method called execute query. This method actually executes the query first, and then it will point the pointer to the first record. And then if you run this method, basically it will say that what is the current row. Or programmatically what you wanted to know, no, I don't want to make the current row as the first row, maybe I want to make it as the last row. Okay, then what we can do, we can have something called CVO dot last. Okay, you can say this one, and we can make the pointer to move to the last row. Then that last row will become the current row here. Okay, similarly we have many methods like CVO dot last dot first dot next dot previous. There are many things you can do. Maybe in this case, let us say you executed the query. Sorry, you executed the query. No, it is the one. You executed the query here. Once you executed the query, it went to the first pointer. Now you want to make it to the next. You want to go to the next record. Okay, then you can say like this. Then the pointer will go to the next record, and that will become the current row. We can say that too. Okay, so here what I will do, I will make it as the last row, and I am trying to execute here, and it will actually refer to the last row here, and you can get the value basically. Okay, so now what I wanted to do here, as I said, once I identify my current row, what I need to do, I want to remove the record basically. Or if I wanted to, maybe what I wanted to do, if my current row country name is, Australia, I want to delete that record. If current row country name is not Australia, I don't want to delete that if that is my requirement. Okay, let us see if that is our requirement. Then what I will do, I will just comment it out, and I will do the execution from the front end. Here what I will say, that if what is my current row, 0 dot get country name is equal to, we have something called got equals ignore case, and I'll get Australia here, equals ignore case is Australia. Okay, equals to Australia. Then what I wanted to do, I just want to remove the row basically. Okay, so what I will do to remove the row, I just need to I just need to remove the row from the view object, right? So I will just go here, and I'll say remove. So delete this row. This method will invoke the remove on the updatable entity rows that are referenced by this view object. Okay, so I am removing it. Once I remove it, what I need to do, I just need to commit the database. To commit the database, we have the method called get db transaction dot this method will come, and I am saying that got commit. Okay, so yeah, commit. So now method, now I got the method and I'm able to commit it, right? So let us see that. Okay, so okay, so what I will do, I will current row, and I will execute it. Current country name is Greece, so I will keep going, and I'll go here, execute it. Current country name is Japan. It won't delete. So I'll go here, go to India, go to United Kingdom, go to Spain, and let us see. Current country is Spain, right? So it won't do anything. Let's go to Australia and go test module, and here executed. Current country name is Australia, and it is a remove method, and it's got executed, and it's got committed now. So if you go back to the country and click, it is Australia here. If you click on the refresh, then the Australia will go away from our queue. So that is how we can do the commit. So to remove it, what all we need to do, we have to go to the respective row pointer, and then remove the invoke the remove command from there, and then commit the data, and that one will get committed automatically. Okay, right? So we have seen, and there are, yes, most of us, I mean, it may be most of us may not be interested in the ADF concepts, but I was just trying to cover as part of our session. So as you are wanted to know more, I will just give an overview of few methods which is useful for us and which we can use it in your projects on the need basis. Maybe everything we have to learn as we go, basically. So there are some other methods. I'm just not demonstrating it here, but I'm just telling you for your reference. Basically, there are some methods like we know we can create criteria for the view objects, right? If you wanted to apply those criteria, you have to apply those criteria programmatically. Okay, how we can do that? Okay, so here we have something called some methods called get to view criteria. Okay, this is the criteria. So what happens is, given the name of the criteria, actually we get the criteria name. Basically, whatever criteria got created, once you can get the criteria. Basically, once you get the criteria, okay, once you get the criteria, then typically what happens, whatever criteria you got created, maybe if you create any criteria to view object, right? In the view object, we haven't created any criteria. Sometimes we will create a criteria here, right? If you get the criteria name here, all we need to do, you have to give the criteria name here. Once you give the criteria name, okay, so we have to apply that. Once you get the criteria name, maybe you want to apply this criteria to your current query. That is your requirement, right? So typically what we need to do, we have something called see what dot. You apply view criteria, get the view criteria, and you can apply the criteria whatever you have received, right? Whatever view criteria you have received, you can get that and sorry, it's not append, it's like apply. Whatever view criteria you have received, right? You can apply that to your current view criteria, then automatically the query whatever you're looking in the current scenario, that query where clause will get modified automatically. It's a programmatical way of applying the criteria in your program, basically. Okay, so there's another way, and there's another few methods which actually, example, you have a query, And what you wanted to do, you have the view object. Once we execute the view object returns 50 rows example. What you wanted to know, you wanted to loop all the 50 rows one by one. Okay, if you want to loop all the 50 rows one by one, we have something called row set iterator. Row set iterator is one object, which is basically what happens. Number of rows will get together into a row set iterator. So I'm just writing you for here for your reference. Example, we have something called create row set iterator. This row set iterator nothing but whatever number of rows are there in your view object. Those view objects basically we can give null. It means it is referring to the same view object. So basically what happens is all those records will come into a row set iterator. Okay, so we have something called row set iterator, ITR. So row set iterator. So we have to import this row set iterator and say alt enter. So row set oracle.jbo. Once you have the row set iterator, we can use a while clause, while itr dot has next. If it has some value, then keep getting the next row. Basically what we can do, we can say itr dot next, get itr dot next row. We can catch that row into your view object, into the row. Basically I would say row 1. Get it? Once you get that, typically what you need to do, okay, you have to do the typecasting. Once you get that row holder, then typically what you can do, you can just say system.out.println c row 1 dot, you can say get country name, something like that, that country name, and it will print the country name. So you're looping it here, you are keep looping it, you're getting all the rows into the iterator, and you're looping the iterator and keep printing the country name in your iterator just like this. Okay, so there are many methods which we can use in the view objects, and where you can keep executing, keep filling up your data, and keep applying in your business logic. Okay, so I'll stop it here. It's yeah, I think it looks like too much boring maybe. So I'll stop it here, and with our Java basic business components classes, the coding part, I will stop it here. And tomorrow I will talk about the user interface part, the front end part tomorrow. And then we'll take an few examples, and day after we will see how we can apply it on the web services. Okay. Okay. So any questions? Is it too boring?
Yeah, Lakshmi Vishnath here.
Yes, Vishnath.
So where we can get it? Is there any document kind like to get standard package and method names to the respective of the purpose?
So whether if you understand the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals are same. Nothing will go beyond these classes, beyond your application model classes or viewer classes and viewer classes. If you get the documentation, typically I would recommend to get the documentation. Example, application module is extending the application module IMPL. Okay, so take this one, take this one, and go to the Google. Just type it. Just type it. So typically it will give the definition of that application module. What is it and what methods it will contain. So if you go to the method example, if you wanted to go and want to know more about the method, click on the method. It will typically gives call to report the rollback operations occurred, something. It will give some explanation of the method. It will say what parameters it will take, like that basically. If it's a row set iterator, it will have more detailed explanation of what's the row set iterator and how does it work, like that. So, and also we have a PDF documents given by the Oracle. I will try to share if I find that. maybe it has more information.
Okay.
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 So
So
how is,
and
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
So and we are not deploying in Fusion, no? Like, is there any
No.
differences between the web services deployment and Fusion deployment?
No, the Fusion deployment, we don't have access. We don't have our own server, or we don't have that level of access actually. So I cannot show you how to deploy it, deploy the pages, what are we create. We cannot do
Mhm.
that. Web service deployment, actually, we are not creating any web service in the Fusion actually. So whatever web service we are going to do, we are consuming whatever available in the Fusion. So in that case, we no need to have any deployment for web services. It's like
Okay.
writing a simple program like that.
Okay. At least if you have any document like
Yeah,
how to deploy the ADF pages in the Fusion, at
yeah,
least
yeah.
if you have any
I
documentation.
will share that for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah. Thank
how is the class,
you.
Vishwanath?
Yeah, it's fine. Actually, last week I missed a few classes.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm getting confused. Maybe I need to go through the previous videos. So
Okay.
it's good. It's a nice session.
Okay. Great. Because some of
Yeah,
them.
I'm able to understand even if initial classes are missed on ADF. So
Okay.
I'm able to understand.
Great. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Some of
And
them.
do we have any advanced options we are going to be covered like okay, images, okay, building up the any tables, something like that in
Yeah.
ADF? We are going to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
into it.
No, we are not. Actually, for these classes only, people are dropping off.
Okay.
So I won't be. Yeah, I understood that I should not go beyond few topics. So yeah, I'm not doing that, but I have. I was planning for a different training for ADF only. So maybe in that
Okay.
I might cover that.
Okay. At least can we expect any material, advanced material, like
Sure,
if we want to be
I
depth,
can.
if we want to be go through, like
I will.
we can
I will try to
material.
get that. I'm taking a note of it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Lakshmi, you will cover the personalization point of view, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I will cover that as part of. Yeah, it's a different scenario. I will cover that. Nothing to worry. Nothing specific to ADF. I will talk about customizations and personalizations differently only on the ADF Fusion page, a separate session actually.
okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Lakshmi. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Lakshmi. Yeah. Thank you, Lakshmi.
See you tomorrow.